One day, 8 years ago, just after we started this podcast, I woke up one morning and I checked my email and I saw that a listener to the podcast had emailed me. And I thought, yay, someone emailed me. You know, it's someone's listening and they've bothered themselves to email. But then I read the email and I realized this person actually hated my guts.
Oh, wow.
He was hostile and he threatened me.
Wait, that was me.
I could feel my adrenaline pumping.
They threatened you?
Not like terribly, but like, I don't know. He just really didn't like me and really thought I was stupid. And just, you know, just insults and insults. And I could feel my adrenaline pumping. I remember this very distinctly. It was like a traumatic moment for me. This person hated the podcast. They thought I was an idiot. They thought I was a terrible person. I was irresponsible. You know, how could a therapist say such things on the internet? And, you know, it was traumatizing and I couldn't sleep that night. I was worried about this random person's opinion of me. And I was worried that maybe everyone thinks I'm an idiot on the internet. And it hurt my feelings. And I have to admit, I almost gave up on the podcast. I was like, if this is what what the listeners are going to be saying to me, or even a percentage of them, I don't think I want to do this thing. But I didn't give up. And I kept receiving these nasty messages, by the way. But over time, I slowly built up a thicker skin. It took many years, and I can't lie, it still hurts, but not nearly as much as it did before.
Would the same people email you multiple times?
Yeah, absolutely. But actually not I would say on average, the hostile emails are probably from brand new people. I have a lot of uniques in internet speak. So part of my way of building up a thicker skin is that I looked into the research on people that will say things like this. So I thought we would review that research here today. What do you say, Berto?
That sounds like a great plan.
So this is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I am a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I am a professional internet troll.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. And let's define a troll. How would you define an internet troll?
I usually define myself as someone who purposely goes out of their way to make comments that will trigger people.
Yeah.
Trigger people. Trigger.
Okay. This is my definition based on other definitions in the psychological literature. Online trolling is the intentional practice of behaving in a deceptive, destructive, or disruptive manner with no apparent instrumental or helpful purpose. So it's intentional because you could accidentally be disruptive or hostile and not intentionally try to bother somebody. So it has to be intentional. It could be deceptive, it could be destructive, and it could be disruptive. And again, no apparent instrumental purpose and no apparent helpful purpose. And it doesn't have to necessarily happen online. I'm hearing people use the term troll to refer to outside online stuff, you know?
Well, but those usually carry big like sticks. And if you basically avoid them, they're pretty dumb.
Yeah.
And they're slow and lumbering.
Yeah. It depends on the venue. In Dungeons and Dragons, trolls are actually quite formidable, especially for lower level characters.
I'm thinking Harry Potter here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Now, before we go on, there as a caveat, there's a gray zone here because we will say, oh, internet trolls. Well, there are oftentimes people or comments are labeled as trolling when it's debatable. There are certain comments online that 99% of people would say, yep, regardless of your political leanings or everything, say, yep, that's a troll. That's someone that's obviously trying to mess with you.
Yeah, which is funny because like the first example you gave, that's probably not a troll. That was probably someone honestly disliking you and us and the podcast. Unless they were doing it like you say, purposely to try to get a rise out of you and like you see it usually when let's say we post an episode about trolling.
Yeah.
And then the first comment is like, it's like something about, it takes one to know one or something like this,
Yeah.
like these are trolling kind of comments.
Just hostile statements doesn't mean necessarily troll, because again, it has to be intentional, or you have to be essentially playing kind of a game.
Yeah.
But if someone is just being hostile, well, we'll get more into that actually later, because I think there's two main types if we're going to go on this spectrum. You have on one side of the spectrum, you have someone that is, they know they're playing a game. They're doing it totally on purpose. They know they're being a troll. They would say, yep, I'm trolling someone right now.
Yeah.
Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, I think under my definition of trolling, there are people that are legitimately being hostile. They have hostile feelings, and they are saying there's just a certain, I've over the 8 years doing this podcast, every day I get some kind of nasty email. And so I can tell you, there are various different kinds, so there are people that are, say for instance, I talk a lot about feminism. And so someone will be hostile with that. And, that's fine. They have a different political point of view. I don't call that trolling. I just call that a misogynistic a-hole who has extremely terrible political views and is arguing in a very bad way.
Now you're trolling.
If someone wants to debate with me the finer points of feminism or something, that's fine. And some people do, but it's very rare. It's usually just like, you're an idiot. You're a man. It's just a lot of name calling without any data, without any nuance of just like, and then back in the day, I used to respond back. I would be like, okay, I hear your point, but can you be a little bit, can you tone it down a little bit and tell me exactly what your criticism is? Cause I'm willing to have a conversation with you. And 99% of the time, that would do nothing. Either they wouldn't respond, or their response would be even more hostile, or just not engaging in any kind of debate.
So to me, the a perennial example might be, you post a thing about feminism, a podcast about feminism, and someone comments saying something like, they're all supposed to stay in the kitchen barefoot. That's a trolling comment.
Right.
If they send you an email just to you and they're like, why do you have to go on these feminism rants or whatever? And then you write back trying to engage them and they never write back. To me, that's just a misplaced, probably a misogynist, probably an angry person.
Well, the way that you said it, sure. But I get things like just someone saying, you're a fucking mangina, or you're a pussy.
Right.
And, again, if someone has a different, and maybe there's a lot of trolling going on according to my definition. Like, for instance, if someone tweets at Fox News that, Fox News are a bunch of idiots, for instance, for people that hate Fox, they'll be like, yep, that's true. They are a bunch of fucking idiots.
Right.
And so they would say, that's not trolling. They're just being accurate.
Right.
But for others, they would look at, including myself, I would say that's troll. I mean, it's hostile behavior. It's unfair behavior. Maybe that's a better word. It's just like unfair,
Yeah.
it's unfair to do that to people. And so maybe that's my bigger point here. But anyway, my larger point here is that there are things that are, decidedly trolling, and then there's sort of a gray zone.
Sure.
Where it sort of depends on your definition and your political views to some extent.
Yeah. Having spent a lot of time in 4chan years ago, don't really go so much anymore.
Why don't you go anywhere? Because it's a freaking mess in there?
It was always a mess. I don't know. I lost interest. No, you know why? I used to get a lot more of current happenings. I would find out interesting, weird things that were going on.
Yeah.
Nowadays, or at least when I've tried it in the last couple of years, there barely is any of that. And it really is just all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, back when I used to frequent it,
maybe Reddit replaced it or something.
Maybe. Well, Reddit was there, but whatever. So when I used to be there, I would notice I didn't participate very much at all. I only made comments probably 10 times total, But I would be engaged in reading the threads, right?
Actually, just to interrupt rudely, you're kind of a troll on Facebook.
On Facebook, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll
That's
frequently say things with
Oh, and
the
yeah.
purpose of bothering people.
That's right.
I
And
think
that-
in your head you're thinking, I want to make a point, I'm trying to be funny, and I want to start a conversation.
No. Sometimes I am doing that, but sometimes I'm really trolling.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say, is that it was very obvious when someone was trolling, because basically they would say things sure to get a rise, and several people would start debating them, and that's what they would call feeding the troll, because then the troll would be like, that would give them satisfaction.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, aha, they're replying to me. And then I'm just going to double down and say even more crazy things. So yes, I sometimes do that on Facebook, because especially with movie type topics, you know, someone posts something about a movie, I'll post something like what I'll usually do is do something very, very, very dry, sarcastic that only a couple of people are going to get, and everyone else is going to think is serious.
Yeah.
And so then they'll be forced to reply to that.
The only people who quote unquote get it are me and your close friends who know that I don't think I've ever seen you post anything literally on the internet that was not sarcastic.
No, I mean, depends. Right? If it's family related, or if it's congratulating someone, it's fine. But if it's
anything that you've posted yourself, even if it's family related, it'll be something. There'll be a twist to it or something.
I certainly do double entendres, or I do like little references.
Anyway,
to
my
things.
point is
but
that
that's different than trolling, though. That's different than trolling, because the trolling thing would be
no, I'm not saying that's trolling. I'm just
someone
saying
would post.
You and the listeners know that when you have a chance, you're going to put a spin on something.
Yes, that's true. Here's the example. Someone puts something about episode 1 really was actually kind of bad, or let's say as an example, I might comment and say, "What is episode 1?"
Yeah,
that's a trolling comment.
Yeah, right.
But I like it.
yeah. So when do you think the term emerged as we're defining it right now?
In 2007.
Actually, as far back as the 1980s.
Oh, wow.
I mean, basically when Usenets and all that kind of stuff first emerged. Okay. The Oxford English Dictionary sets the origin in Usenet in the early 1990s, though, and as in the phrase "trolling for newbies." This was the original. It had a really specific meaning in the beginning.
Okay.
And apparently it was when veteran online users would present topics online that had been so overdone that only a new user would respond to them earnestly. For example, a veteran of the group might make a post that you know that glass is just liquid, and how eventually it'll be just a pool on the ground. It's just really slow flowing liquid. And anyone who knows anything about glass knows that's a myth.
But what's great is that the veterans would jump on and say, "Oh yeah, I know. In fact, there was an article that blah 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 blah."
Right.
To make it seem legit.
And then all the newbies chime in and go like, "Well, actually," and then they have an argument about it, and then all the veterans are laughing. So that's the original trolling, and to some extent, I like that version of trolling because it's sort of
hazing. It's hazing.
Yeah, but it's not mean too.
No, it's not mean hazing.
It's fun having fun with newbies, I guess.
Yeah, it's like when
this is what you do, right?
Yes.
When you're like episode 1, I don't know that, you know.
It's the fun kind of hazing, like in a frat where you stamp people's nuts with a revolver,
right?
You know, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But in 4chan, a common one was someone would make a post saying, "I still remember my." I still have traumatic memories of penis inspection day. And then all the ones in the know would say like, "I know, man. Like, I actually still have nightmares about it." And then inevitably some noob would be like, wait, what is this a thing? What are you guys talking about? It's like, "Oh, you might have not had it at your school. I'm not sure if it was at every place in the country, but they used to have a day once a year where they would do penis inspection at schools, and it was in front of everyone." And then people are like, "What? This isn't real." And then all the newbies would be like second guessing themselves, like, "What?"
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure some newbies were like, "America, what a stupid country."
Yep.
Well, what are the other terms that are related to trolling that people will apply to internet behavior? Do you know?
Feed the troll.
But they have nothing to do with troll.
Oh, I see. Spamming is one. Doxing.
Doxing? What's that?
Like basically.
Wait, are you trolling me right now?
No. No, it's where I harass you by like screwing up your credentials, or I could.
Like documenting, doxing.
No.
Oh. Well, anyway,
I don't know what the acronym stands for, but
you got flaming and you got griefing. To grief someone. So, and as with anything, at this point anyway in history, because it's so new, all these terms are used in a variety of ways. If you say troll on the internet, it's hard to lock that down. In fact, long story short, what I do now is very different from what I used to do. But what I used to do is I used to try to engage these people. And I would actually sometimes say, so I'm just going to need you to tone down the trolling a little bit, and then we can have a conversation. And then we'd have this huge argument about whether or not the guy was trolling or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anyway, but before we go on to some of the research, let's hear from our sponsors. What do you say?
Let's hear it.
Okay, we're back. So before we go into the research, just some other details about trolling. In the UK, some people are being prosecuted for trolling. Did you know this?
I did not. Wow, the UK's got some interesting laws.
Yeah, they're much more amenable to anti-free speech, essentially.
Yeah.
And Lindy West, you know who she is?
Nope.
Oh, you should. She's a famous Seattle writer for The Stranger, and she's also internationally known as someone who is at the cutting edge of feminism, online trolling, because she fell into that because she just got a ton of trolling.
But she's a woman.
Yeah.
See,
and
that's trolling.
and fat acceptance movement. She has a new book out. I can't remember the name of it, but I've heard her in interviews. She's actually a fascinating person. I have hopes, and I predict that in 50 years, they're going to look back at this time and they're going to identify Dan Savage as someone who furthered sex positivity in America. And we're also going to, I think, see Lindy West as someone who furthered our society either through feminism or online trolling or the fat acceptance movement or something. She writes so well and she's so convincing. She's just a great writer. I recommend it. I heard her on This American Life. This was a while ago, in which she talked about all the terrible things people had to say about her on the internet. And she somehow figured out the identity of one of her worst trolls, one of her like famous trolls. And she publicly talked about him. I think he found out somehow about her personal life that her dad had passed away, and he actually went into detective mode to figure out what his name was and where he lived. I might be remembering this wrong, and somehow posted stuff about that and really tried to get under her skin in a real way, and she somehow found out who he was. And then she publicly talked about him, and then he apologized, and he explained why he did it. And on This American Life, they actually
apologized.
Yeah, and on This American Life, they actually have a conversation, and they have it on audio, and it's really interesting. It's fascinating to me, and I might be misremembering the episode, but he just seemed like a lonely guy who was suffering and became confused and sort of fixated on Lindy for some reason. And as soon as he was discovered, he immediately apologized and it sort of snapped him out of it or something. But anyway, and there are many other famous stories of online trolls, particularly around women, particularly around feminism, and particularly around rape. There's just a lot of stuff about that. So one study, Buckles et al. Buckles is a kind of leading researcher, I think, on trolling. Published in 2014. a lot of respondents. They sent out different online surveys, and they asked people to answer a bunch of questions to measure their personality and a bunch of questions to figure out how they communicate on the internet. So they're trying to figure out the personality of trolls. And guess what trolling was, and you might have even read these articles.
I did not.
Was what personality traits are associated with trolling on the internet?
Personality
Ding,
traits.
Ding, ding, ding,
Okay,
ding, ding.
One of them would be antisocial.
Good. Another word for that is psychopathy. What's the principal characteristic of
Lack of empathy.
lack of empathy? Exactly. Good. Ding, ding, ding. What else?
Okay, so I think the need to be in the spotlight, but so like maybe narcissism, but not quite because they might
Yeah.
be shy.
No, it's narcissism.
Okay.
So, and what's the key element of narcissism?
Well, that what you do or say, you want that to be the most important thing. I
Yeah.
guess you want to be the center of attention.
Center of attention, right?
Yeah.
You're the only person.
Yeah.
You don't care about other people, and you need people to look at you, right? You want others to look at you
That's
as
right.
as awesome. Okay. Anything else? Any other personality traits? You got 2. It's good. Ding, 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 ding.
I forget.
ding.
I don't even know any other personality traits.
That's funny. So yeah, well, this gets into what we call in psychology the Dark Triad or the Dark Tetrad. Either
Like Tetris
yeah,
or like Zelda.
the Dark 3 or the Dark 4 personality traits. So narcissism is 1, psychopathy is 2, and Machiavellianism is number 3.
Wow.
And that's when you what?
You're trying to manipulate?
Right. You're manipulating others for personal gain.
Oh.
And 4 is sadism.
Of course.
So
Sadism and masochism.
because being narcissistic, psychopathic, and Machiavellianistic, if that's a word, does not necessarily mean you take pleasure in harming other people. You could have a lack of empathy. You could be a psychopath and lack empathy, but and accidentally hurt other people or hurt other people because it helps you. But
You might not take pleasure in it.
but you don't take pleasure in harming other people. You just don't care. But sadists actually get off on harming other people. They want to make other people suffer. They want to humiliate
This is
them.
like a Bundy. A Bundy might land all 4 categories.
Right. But there's, shy of serial killers, there's a lot of sadists out there.
I was talking about Al Bundy.
Yeah. When you said Bundy, that was the first thing that popped into my head.
So, quick question.
Yeah. So this is the Dark Tetrad or the dark 4 personality.
So, because I feel like when I'm trolling, I certainly have a little bit of narcissism in there, but I have more masochism than sadism. Meaning,
yeah, you do.
I kind of want to be like,
Because people start seriously just like when we did... We got to talk about the classic troll situation where you were trolling me about the ice bucket challenge.
yes, oh my god, that was
Okay,
awesome.
so in a nutshell, I was challenged, and I was wrapped up in the whole kind of fervor. It was this summer, like 2 or 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
And I decided, well,
2 years.
if I'm going to make a video, I don't want it to just be like everyone else. I want to do a spin on the video. Mm-hmm. And so what I decided to do was go up on my roof, have the Space Needle behind me, and I was just going to stand there without any words. And I was going to have someone dump ice cold water on my head very slowly. Like not just like splash, but like just slowly, as if it was like a Monty Python skit or something. I kind of had that in my head. And so I go up on the roof, I set up the tripod, and that's what it is. I had someone just slowly pour. But in order to slowly pour, I don't have a lot of implements for, I lived in a condo at the time.
But I glass, right?
I had all I had was in a big bucket. All I had was the a planter water, water. What do you call those? A water planter?
A watering can.
A watering can, like a big one. And when I put the water into the thing, the ice wouldn't go through the hole.
Right.
So I had to warm it up a little bit just to get the ice out. But it was still like 33 degrees Fahrenheit. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like 1 degree Celsius or something. It was freaking cold. And as they were pouring it on my head, I was starting to lose consciousness because it was so long.
Ow.
It was so cold for so long. I could feel myself getting kind of lightheaded.
Oh.
And and so I posted that, and I named you as one of the people that should follow. Yeah, and so take it from there.
Well, so first of all, very artfully done. I did actually like it, but yes.
That's the first time you've ever said that.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. True to fashion. First of all, since I didn't know all the background, I was sure that it was cold water. I wasn't doubting that, but I had to make fun of the fact that it just looked like a nice little plantering water.
Right. So instead of just playing along and like doing a thing,
Yep.
you said I want to troll Kirk.
Yep.
And then
so I basically set up this video where it was the most ridiculous thing because I basically said, sure, anyone can have like normal room temperature water poured on them or whatever.
Right, because in my video, you couldn't tell if it was cold. It looked like it could be actually pleasantly warm because there's no ice in it.
And then I said, but it's called the ice bucket challenge. Right. And so check this out. So I had...
And by the way, just as a caveat, you don't refer to Kirk at all. You just launch into this thing as if you're yelling at somebody. But no one knows,
that's true,
except for me, that you're referring to
out
me
of
like,
my
and
300 people. Or
you're
whatever.
Posting it on Facebook, and
right.
no one knows what you're talking about.
And I have a bowl full of ice cubes.
Yeah,
and I have someone dump it on my head, but there's no water in it, and so all the ice cubes just kind of plunk off of my head.
Well, I think, most of it had solidified into...
Oh, yeah. That's right. There was water originally, but it solidified into a block.
Yeah. And so this block of ice cubes bounced off your head and landed, and you were on the grass.
Because I was like, see, that's real ice challenge. And then I got on the grass and I was rubbing it all over myself.
Yeah.
And then...
It was long, too. It was like a 6-7 minute video.
That's right.
It was long.
And then you came back and you commented and you said, what? That wasn't even like, there was no water or whatever.
Well, did I?
Because then I responded again with another one.
It was everyone else, all of our other friends who had no idea.
That's right.
They were like, that's the lamest ice bucket. They were like all piling on.
That's right.
Because they had no idea what you were referring to.
That's like, are you kidding me?
And even if they did, it was pretty sad, because if it was a bunch of ice, like that would have been more effective if you just had like a, which
is what I did the second time.
Well, so then the second time, so then you go out, I'm guessing, to the store and you just get like a huge couple bags of ice.
4 bags of ice.
Right. But again, when the ice, so you did it again. You said, okay, now you're trolling everyone. Now you're trolling all of our other friends who are like going, what are you doing? And then the ice, although a lot more ice, pretty much just bounced off your head.
Well, so by the way, at this point, this is where I was being a dumbass, because I didn't think about the fact that as more of that ice would congeal, if that lands on your head, it can really hurt. So when they dumped, at this point, it wasn't a bowl, it was a whole bucket. This time it was one of those like drinking bucket, like where you fill Gatorade with or whatever, or a cooler. It was a cooler full of ice. As they dumped it on my head, it was I was actually lying on the floor on top of a bed of ice. So it was about a 2-foot fall of ice with a block of ice.
Yeah. And
it went crack right on my head, and it really hurt. It was like I nearly got a concussion. It was like,
right.
All in the name of trolling.
So this is why you say you're masochistic, because you're smart enough to know that this isn't going to go, no one's going to go like, oh my God, Humberto is so funny, or he's so smart. Like, no one is thinking that. You're almost just like creating a social gathering around you that's making fun of you.
That's right.
Because you have enough self-esteem.
Well, and I do. And then the narcissist part is that I entertain myself. So I basically I'm laughing at the fact that I'm the only one that really knows what's going on, and maybe you do too. So I'm like, and so I like doing jokes where at least one other person is in on the joke, even if everyone else doesn't get it.
Right. Well, so you're not very similar to the other trolls, and your trolling behavior is not, because like you wouldn't go after a random person on the internet and abuse them just to hurt their feelings.
No, only my friends.
Right. So this is why the word trolling and the definition gets kind of weird, but anyway, so trolling is correlated with narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and sadism. Another research study we can look into is by Maltby et al., 2016, just this year. They identified many different factors that play into why these people troll. Why do you think, like, if you just got behind the psychology of these people, why do you think they do it? What do they get out of it? What would you say?
I think the attention is part of it.
Right. So that's the first one. They call it the seeking conflict / attention factor. So they want recognition and acknowledgement, and they're not getting it in their personal life. So they do this and they get it because they just, splatter all these trolling behaviors all over the place. And eventually someone's going to engage them. And if you're not getting any attention, then negative attention is at least attention.
It's something, yes.
What's another reason why someone would do this?
They might have a conflict of feelings about the subject matter, and they don't actually know how to properly express it. And the only way they can think of doing it is, saying something offensive or saying the opposite, maybe, of even how they feel. Yeah.
Well, I would say that's not trolling, right? Because then they're just bad communicating as I badly communicate something.
Yeah.
They're not communicating well about something that they think or feel. But what's a reason for just purely screwing with people on the internet? Why would they do that?
They might actually be malicious, Yeah.
So that's the viciousness, nastiness factor, they call it in psychology, and it's just pure sadism. The other two are the low self-confidence factor, trolling to get status, because some trolls actually are elevated on the internet. It's like, oh, he's awesome. Look at that guy. And I'm saying males because the vast majority of trolls have been found to be men. And the fourth one is the amusement factor. A lot of this is probably your factor. It's like you troll for amusement, just to have
for lulz,
just for entertainments. The last study I want to talk about is Fitchman et al. 2015. They found that on average, men and women tend to react differently to trolls. They did a lot of gender.
Oh, interesting.
And they found that men are generally more confrontational, or they cut off. They either confront or they just completely block somebody, whereas women tend to either ignore it, but they don't block it because they don't want to be aggressive against the trolls in general, the way that men and women are socialized.
I think that's because in the savannah, when you're hunting with the pack, it's an advantage to stop a troll in its tracks.
Yeah, exactly. You're trolling me right now. So what should we do about all this? Like all the people out there and myself and you, what should we do as a solution against these trolls? What should we do?
Okay, so on the one hand, we've talked about before how all these technologies, we take them for granted, right? But they just got here. And here's an example of something that doesn't happen. Or at least, I don't know, I don't think it does. Do they teach these topics in school as you're growing up?
Well, I'm about to go to a camp in the woods, and it's a camp for kids, and there's a very small mention of cyberbullying. But not, I think, what you're talking about.
Because think about it this way. We're teaching these kids. In fact, I was just, I know someone who's sending their kids to Montessori school. And supposed to be a really good program and stuff. But one of the interesting things is they really try to stay away from technology. And of course, there's lots of research that, screen time is not good for kids and all these things. And I think that's all fair and good. But the flip side of this is that we're not maybe giving tools to ourselves and now kids to deal with these new realities. So imagine if, as we're growing up, we learned, I mean, we already grew up, but imagine as new kids are growing up, they learned that what a troll is and why, what about it, and then they knew how to react as a group about it, and you could even simulate it.
What would you say to these people?
Well, then you would say like, okay, so band together, and essentially.
But how do you band together? What does that mean exactly?
That means that as a group that's not interested in the trolling behavior, you self-police. You say, well, you're not welcome in this forum anymore.
Okay.
You say, this is not what we do. In fact, I've been
free
part
speech,
of,
man, free speech.
No, I've been part of communities that do very good at self-policing.
Yeah.
Because usually, though, there are some advantages here because they might be a closed community where there's a moderator and someone can control access. It's harder when it's on YouTube and basically anyone can comment or something. That is harder. But
about every day, I will delete comments that are trolls, and I can tell that they're not contributing. They're not. You know, I don't mind getting into a debate with someone, but every day I there's various. I can either delete them or I can actually just block that person entirely from our channel.
And that's another thing is I would say is like learn to ignore obviously trolling posts.
Okay,
like,
so that's
to not feed them, as they say.
Yeah, good. So those are all the things that I would say is get support, talk with other people, you know, like band together, like you're saying, but actually like talk it out. Because one of the things that helped me is I've talked with other podcasters, other internet people, and we'll just commiserate about trolls and about just nasty people on the internet. And it feels good not to be alone, you know? Also, see it for what it is. It's, you know, when you get a comment that's there, now this is what I do. When I get a comment that's well beyond the threshold, I just say to myself, it's just another narcissistic, psychopathic sadist that is trying to get a rise out of me. I'm not going to take it personally. Like the person who made me feel like an idiot, it's, you know, I'm not going to take that personally. Because many of the trolls, actually, I've realized based on the way they comment, don't even listen to our episodes.
I see.
They just
saw the title.
They see the title and they just assume something, and then they start spewing all the stuff, and so it's very easy to disregard that. So you should. And the last thing, the most important thing, is what you've mentioned: is we have to ignore these people. If they don't get attention, they won't stop. You know, the reason why they don't troll their shoes are because the shoes don't react. You know, you can insult your own shoes and nothing ever happens. So that's why they didn't do it. You know, that's why bullies do this sort of thing. Is they want a reaction. Yeah. Because they want that attention and they want that gratification. And if you just act like it doesn't happen, then it'll go away. And I think that's actually kind of happening. I mean, back in the day, you couldn't actually delete comments on YouTube. I think it was just like, you know, if someone commented, it was there. And then when they gave that power to the video owners, I remember it was this big uproar of just like, oh, free speech and all this stuff. But basically what it does is it makes, because back in the day, if you were trolling, your stuff was there set in stone and got all this attention. Yeah. Whereas now I can just delete it as soon as it happens, and that person doesn't get any attention.
That's true. I also wonder, this one would probably not work, but it'd be funny. Maybe it'd be trolling the troll. Like someone, you know, again, someone posts something, like a big tragedy just happened, and someone's like, well, they deserved it, right? It'd be funny in a dark sort of way in this case, but if everyone commented, replied and said, yep, totally agree. You're right. Yep, totally. Yeah. And no one argued.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that would actually give them something, because they'd be like, oh, now I'm actually getting attention.
Confuse them, though.
So at the end of the episode, I want to switch gears here and say that, Berto, I have a card for you.
You do?
Yeah, and I want you to open it and read it. There's a gift for you in there.
Ooh.
I'm
opening it.
Look at the cover.
It's very... What?
Oh, the gift fell out.
Happened. One second. First of all, it says T. Hanks, which I assume stands for Tom. Is this really his picture?
Yeah.
This is what he looked like?
When he was younger, yeah.
This looks like a Snapchat merge photo between, I guess, Tom Hanks and Melissa Tomei or something. All right. I'm going to open it up. It said, but the thing is, it says thanks.
Yeah.
But it's T.Hanks.
Yeah.
It's very clever. It's our 10-year anniversary.
It's our 10-year anniversary, bud.
Of us.
You and I.
Yeah.
You and I met 10 years ago.
I can't tell you how much I enjoyed our friendship. Here's to 10 more years of fun and face pointing. I love it. Your loyal friend, Kirk. Wow. It's really 10 years?
So I gave you some movie passes.
Oh my God.
Because as a gift, and as I looked on the internet, for wedding anniversaries, there's different materials that you do for each year, right?
And what's 10?
10 is aluminum. So I'm giving you this used
a Fresca
can.
But it's not the Fresca's been used.
Yeah.
What I'm left with is the aluminum.
Yeah. Well, it didn't say actual soda pop.
Can't I use this as deodorant?
Sure.
So hey, this is admit one, but it's two of them.
Yeah.
So we should go see a movie.
Sure. What movie?
We're gonna have to look it up.
Good.
I have lost track of what's out.
So 10 years, man. You remember when we met? We were singing karaoke.
We were at the karaoke. It was a Japanese event.
And Japanese.
Well, you weren't there for the event. You were there.
I was a plus one. You were a plus one.
I was a plus one. Oh, you were there with some friend of the event?
Yeah.
Who was the friend?
Stu.
Oh, Stu. Okay, and then I was there with my.
So
friend.
it was a whole bunch of people who go to Japan and teach English, the JET program, I think.
Yeah.
And they had a big karaoke event in this Japanese restaurant in Fremont, and we got invited along.
That's right.
And you were the star of the night because you sang several songs and went out into the crowd, and then I sang some really terrible stroke song or something.
But I did like I liked the fact that you were picking good songs. That's what I remember. And then that we got to talking about music, and you said, "Oh, I play keyboards." I said, "Oh, we're looking for a keyboardist, man."
Yeah.
And then that's the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history.
You can read about it on Wikipedia.
All right, well, that does it for this episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us out there. Please take care of yourself because
you deserve 2 movie tickets.